Hello, my doves. We are back, as promised, finally, with the making of the Hobbit door. Now this, I've already painted, and I did give it a nice sealing coat. I did attach the doorknob here, as you see. Perspective-wise, it is a little small compared to the door, but once we get the moss and flowers around the edges, it won't look quite so small. It is a bit weird, but it is the only gold bead I had, and I didn't want to have to buy a wood circle and figure out how to get the right shade of gold and everything. That just seemed like a lot of work, and I'm kind of, when I want to do something, I want to get it done, for lack of a better word. I'm impatient, that's what I was trying to think of. But I am getting ready to attach everything to this one. This is moss. Calm your bad minds. This is just moss. It comes out of a bag. It says natural moss on it. I think technically it is live moss. But you buy it at a craft store. It is not anything that is legal in some states, but not others, including the state I live in. So, we have that. We have moss. We have a variety of different flowers and stems of different colors. I've got some dark blue ones over here that I might work in, mostly white and purple, though that seems to be my go-to color palette for these. And then my trusty hot glue gun. So yes, it's one of those videos where there's going to be cursing and excitement and pain. So sit back and enjoy the ride while we work on our lovely Hobbit door craft. Now these are quite fun to make, and they're pretty easy to make as well. So I have only made a couple before. I think some of my neighbors either just got home or are in the process of leaving. I tend to pick up a lot of weird crafts because I see stuff online, or I think of something I want to make for my friends, or they show me something online and they're like, oh, this is super cute. Have you made something like this? Can you make me something like this? And usually the answer is maybe, or that is super cool. I'll give it a try. And we'll do what we can. So, I have made Hobbit doors. I have made, can't think of the word, character-themed dream catchers of the Mouse Emporium variety. The Magical Kingdom was strong with the pin boards I made. It was a combination of cork board, foam, or not foam, felt, that's the word, and paint to give some background details and just cutting out the character silhouettes. So actually not that hard of a project to do yourself if you like collecting decorative pins like blind box pins, or you go to certain fancy awesome theme park also run by a magical mouse who's taken over the world, and you collect their pins, or just any kind of pin. You could do any character, doesn't have to be that kind of magical character. Could be, you know, Space Ranger characters. You could do anything. So there's a lot of random crafts I've done over time, just because they sounded like fun, or they sounded like they would be interesting, or because someone asked me to. I need to do another dream catcher with one of my friends for her grandmother. But the interesting part is that she wants to incorporate seashells that they got the first time she went to the ocean with her now husband. And I don't have a Dremel or anything like that to bore holes into seashells. So that is definitely going to be a learning experience to make that happen. But she's really excited about it. I already have some hoops and some fun ribbons and embroidery thread in different colors to make it happen, so I'm down. The bigger thing is finding time for her and I to get together because we both work really hectic schedules. Because she is a CNA, which is a wonderful profession. Pretty underappreciated in the United States, honestly. as far as how much work and time they spend with the people in their care. And just knowing her personally for as long as I have, I know she gives 110% every day that she goes in, because she honestly is one of the most caring people I've ever met in my life. She will tell you how it is 100% of the time if you're being foolish. Yeah, she does with me. Someone has to. But she is definitely one of the most caring people I've ever known in my life. If my family ever had to go into a rehab facility for like a long-term injury or something like that, where they would need a lot of help with just like day-to-day stuff and getting back on their feet, I would want her to be the one taking care of them. Or someone just like her. Anyway, that's a bit of a weird tangent. We're working on a Lord of the Rings store. Why not talk a little bit about Lord of the Rings? A huge fan of the movies. When I was in daycare, when I was much, much, much younger, during the summer, part of our break every day, we would go outside and sit in this nice big tent to stay away from the bugs, of course. Pretend like we were camping. And one of the directors, who I now realize was literally just a college student. And I'm like, oh wow, I thought they were the coolest person in the world back then. And now that I'm like 30, I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh. That kid, all he had to do all summer was corral us. Oh God, I feel so bad. But at the time I was like, you're so cool. He would read us several pages of Lord of the Rings every day, about as much as our tiny attention spans and the heat would allow, because some days it was super hot out there. But we would get through, almost a chapter every day of the Lord of the Rings. And then the next summer, after that year, because we did eventually finish it, he started reading The Hobbit to us, and I don't think we got a chance to finish it that year because I think there was some other stuff that happened as far as like trips and all that. So I never personally read the books, but they were read to me back when I was in daycare. And I really want to read the Silmarillion because I like the extended lore. I like the big universe building they have going on. I kind of want to do like a gradation. That's how you say it. With the different colors here. And the texture of this one is a little more piney. You'll make sense of that when I actually pull it apart and show you. Oh my gosh, I'm going through glue like crazy. I'm going to need a whole nother glue stick probably, and I only grabbed 2 spares. But I like big universes that you can really sink your teeth into. Like, as long as they're interesting, keep it coming. And Lord of the Rings is a great example of world building that some people would consider excessive. But I think if you've got an entire world that is that detailed in your head, go for it. Let it out. Mr. Tolkien, sir, you came up with all of this originally as a bedtime story for your kids and started writing it down because they would notice if the small details changed from night to night, as far as, oh, you said he's wearing a blue vest last night. You said he was wearing a red vest. Like, his kids noticed those details. So he started writing it down so that they couldn't say he was getting the stuff wrong anymore. And it just grew and grew and grew from a child's fairy tale by a very creative and obviously caring father to this massive epic and this massive world. And he wrote the different Elvish languages and scripts himself and conceptualized all this stuff. Just out of love, out of desire, out of pure creative passion. And I find that super admirable. And that's also one thing I absolutely love about the movies, is you can tell with the original trilogy, extended edition or not, even if you're just watching the regular editions because you think sitting through a 4.5-hour version of a movie is too long. That is fine. Respect. I get it. But you can tell the amount of detail they put into it and the fact that they used practical SFX for the first 3 movies when like CGI was available. There were other movies coming out around Return of the King that were using quite a bit of CGI, but they didn't want to do that, and they put hours and hours and hours of prosthetic work into the practical effects that they were doing, and it turned out so good. I mean, look at it. The first trilogy still stands up against a lot of what we're able to do with CGI today. I mean, no offense, I did like the Hobbit movies to a point. I liked them. I'm not going to say I was a massive fan of them. I think the original trilogy is still better. Sorry if you don't like that. I have a real soft spot for the originals. But I think that the practical effects that they used in the originals look a lot better than some of the CGI. Some, not all, but look better than some of the CGI that they used in the Hobbit trilogy. Now, I think the story for the Hobbit trilogy was very compelling. Do I think it needed to be 3 movies? Maybe, maybe not. Do I think that the 3rd movie took some interesting turns? Yeah, I was one of the people that wondered why they were following, oh gosh, what's his name? The guy with the black hair. Bard kept giving him different things to do around the city to help out with the refugees and this, that, and the other, and getting people evacuated, and he just wasn't doing any of it. He was just kind of running around like I think he kept like trying to find ways to like rob stuff or like get some profit out of it for him. And it just bothered the heck out of me. I was like, why are we still on this guy? Like there's a whole battle coming. And we're following this one weird dude around. I don't get it. But you know, I don't make the decisions. I'm not paid to make the decisions. And I mean, who knows how much cool stuff got left on the cutting room floor because they just couldn't figure out how to work it in, because sometimes that happens. Like you get stuff like that because the other stuff that they wanted to put in there just couldn't work out for some reason. I don't know. I think I like that color gradient. I like the slight darker than this coming up. And like shape-wise, you can tell this is the bottom. This is going to be the top up here. This is where the hanger, ribbon thing, whatever you want to call it, is going to go. And I definitely need another glue stick for the flower portion. And I want to fill in this gap just a little bit more. So 2 seconds. I will be right back, my dears. Okay, I am back. I mostly paused it to make sure that if I knocked over my phone on the stand that it wouldn't be caught on camera or cause you to get vertigo or anything. Because sometimes I do knock it over because it is right up against me. Get that bit out of the way. The thing about working with moss in a craft project like this is it does shed incredibly bad. So that is one thing to keep in mind if you're going to make something like this and you're not a big fan of messes, or there's someone else that you live with that is not a big fan of messes, whether that's spouse, partner, roommate, friend, parent. Definitely put some newspaper, put some plastic bags down from the grocery store, you know. Cut one open and lay it down and then just wrap it all up when you're done. I don't know what kind of stuff you want to use for disposable cover up, but you got options. This part is just not. There we go. I made some stringies. You probably can't see them on camera, so I just look like a crazy person right now. There we go. First burn of the night. Did not think the moss was going to be a problem, but happens every time. And then this bit's just kind of floating around, and I want to... Mainly because when the person I'm giving this to is hanging it up, I don't want them to have a big old mess all over their floor. those kind of like bigger branches to fall off in transit either, since this is more of like a long, spiny pine kind of looking moss. So I think we've got most of it settled in there. Just gonna pick it up, give it a little shake, see what comes loose. These bits right here are already coming off, so we're just gonna remove that. Check it from all angles. There's a teeny tiny gap right there. Oh, my cat's up in the window. Don't mind any thumping noises, that's just the little bug running around. That's a little thin right there, so I'm just gonna pull a tiny bit of this pale green. Oopsie doodle. Rotate. Glue. Try not to burn myself. Cross my fingers. There's a little bit of glue stuck to me, but it's not burning because I think it's mostly on my nail. And that's okay. There we go. There's a string. There's two strings. Oh no. There we go. Oh, well, now there's stuff stuck to me. Gosh, I'm always such a mess. Okay, there we go. Pull that off. I kind of like this bit right here that's like coming into the circle. I don't want it to be too perfect. Now it is painted like the Baggins front door, but it's not necessarily their door. I mean, their door didn't have a whole bunch of flowers and everything growing around it like this. It's just loosely inspired by the general cottagecore vibe that their houses gave off. Do people still say vibe? Is cottagecore still a thing? I love cottagecore, so I want it to be a thing, but I don't think it's quite as much of a thing anymore. But oh well. If I was keeping up with the trends, I would be an entirely different person because I've never been good at that. There's also a little bit of a gap right here that I'm going to fill in with some of this darker stuff. And we're just going to give that an oop. There we go. Yeah. So, big fan of the first three movies. I think the actors that they chose also really made an impact because none of them, except for like Viggo Mortensen and I think it was pre-Pirates for Orlando Bloom, but Sir Ian McKellen and Christopher Lee. And I always forget the name of the actor that plays Elrond. But at the time, they were like the big name stars going into the movie. Orlando Bloom wasn't super well known. Oh, and the guy that plays Gimli. But the thing that's hard for me to remember him is that he always looks so different in all of his roles. But like Elijah Wood, not a super well-known actor at the time. This was kind of his big break. Orlando Bloom ended up being massively famous. And he does still get like picked on a little bit too for some of the like the faces that he made when he was playing Legolas, for good reason, because some of those stares were just like he looked real goofy, but it was fun. Well, and Sam, okay, the actor that played Sam had some pretty notable roles up until then. Sean Astin, and he's had some great roles since then. I haven't seen more than a couple episodes of Stranger Things because I'm bad at watching TV shows. Like in general, I'm just bad at keeping up with TV shows. But I hear he does an amazing job in that. And he had some good roles before that too. But where was I going with this? Oh, and there's our lovely train. I'm going to pause for a second just for the horns to finish. I apologize. The last time I made... God, what video was it? It was a couple weeks ago. I did not even notice that you could hear the evening train in the background. And I just... Whoops, there it goes again. I thought the horns were done. I couldn't edit the sound out because everything I tried to edit the sound out was taking out all of my sounds because I had a lot more tapping and stuff. I think it might have been the cauldron. But it could have been the tarot reading before that too. But everything that I was doing, it was taking out all the sounds when I tried to filter it. Because I can't go through and remove only the background noise when I'm only talking this loud. And like, this is all the noise I'm making. There is no cleaning up the background sound because it all sounds like background sound. And I mean, this is not a very large apartment. I don't have a lot of places I can go to in the apartment. And there's not a whole lot of soundproofing here either. There's a little bit, like, it's not horrendous. It's not like I'm living in like an awful apartment. I love this apartment. Great place. Neighbors are all pretty decent. It's very safe. It's a very quiet neighborhood in general. But when it comes to the train going by, not a whole lot I can do about it. And I can't like do a whole bunch of soundproofing to the apartment either to kind of drown that out. These little things are literally flower bits and bobs, tiny flower buds, just pieces I've cut off of various flowers that I've accrued in my crafting store over a long time. A lot of the blue ones and the bigger white ones are from my pumpkins that I did a few years back that I'm insanely proud of. And if it was not already past Halloween season, I 100% would show you guys my pumpkin. I needed to fix them up after being in storage and make some new ones this year, but I kind of forgot. So they are already back in storage for next year. And I'll just have to work on them next year. Oh, that reminds me, I need to take the batteries out of the cauldron because I left the batteries in when I put that in storage and those are going to explode. Thankfully, when I say storage, I just mean my closet. So I'm just adding a little bit of hot glue to the base of these stems and just kind of smacking them on in there into the moss. And these stems and these little purple flowers did come on the same craft stem. I get most of mine from Michael's. Sometimes I go to Joann Fabrics, but most of the time I get a lot of my stuff from Michael's because it's closer. I like the prices. And I had a couple friends that used to work there in like high school and stuff, and they seemed to like it pretty well. So since they were treated well and I shopped there, I do not go to the third crafting option in town ever, because I don't agree with some things, and that's all I'm going to say about that, because this is not a political channel. And we're just going to keep it cool. Hey. Frick. Frick, frack, patty whack. Oh well. It dries clear-ish, and it hopefully won't be super noticeable. And I'm going to put a little tiny bit there and just kind of press this down with that extra drop of glue so that it kind of blends in. There's that. I kind of want to do at least one or two more of the white flowers going up toward the top. I think I definitely cut way too much greenery to prep for this. But I mean, you go into this kind of thing and you're just kind of winging it, and you're just like, we'll see what looks good while I'm doing it. And you can always use the greenery for other stuff. It's not like you just have to, cut it and throw it away because you didn't use it. That would be silly. I have a whole little mini craft cart that is just stacked with little bits and bobs of things like this, because I do all kinds of weird crafts. Do I want to do a third one? No, I think I like having an asymmetrical with the 2 here and then the 3 here, but the 2 here. I think maybe one of the bigger white flowers and then a small white flower, and then that might just be it. So it turns out I'm probably not going to use the dark blue flowers that I brought over. Which again, is totally fine. Oh, I remember what I was saying now. The actor that played Gimli in the Lord of the Rings movies also played the uncle of Chris Pine's character in Princess Diaries 2. The lord that was trying to steal her crown and make his nephew the king. Yeah, that was him. And he looks so wildly different in most of his roles. That he's another one of those that I have a really hard time being like, oh yeah, it's the same actor. It's not like, and this is a terrible example, but Johnny Depp, he does these zany roles. And he always has these really interesting costumes. I mean, you look at him in Pirates of the Caribbean, Willy Wonka, Dark Shadows movie, which I know did not get great reviews, but I thought was pretty good. I thought it was a pretty clever little movie. Great cast in that movie. But even though his costumes and everything are really detailed and really vivid, and he always looks insanely different in each role. Oh, Sweeney Todd, great example of that as well. Even though he looks crazy different every time, you can kind of always tell it's Johnny Depp. Something about like his bone structure and everything, he just kind of stands out. These other actors are so good at getting into character that they morph into the being so hard that it's hard, at least for me, maybe it's an ADHD thing, to be able to distinguish them and be like, oh, hey, that's that same actor every time. Like, it took me a couple times watching Captain America to realize that Elrond is the guy that plays Red Skull. Like, he's such a chameleon of an actor. And yeah, both times he was wearing makeup and like face paint and, you know, prosthetics that altered his appearance a little bit, generally speaking. But I mean, just the mannerisms and everything were so starkly different that I could not tell it was the same guy until I looked at it later and I was like, oh my god, that is him. Holy cow. I thought he was great as Elrond. And I think that's the thing about people that play really, really different and bold characters like that all the time. So I want to include one of these little doop doop pokey things right there. Yeah. I like that right there. That's not doing too much. I can definitely put that there, if I can get it back so I can put some glue on it. My gosh. Trying to get it without knocking anything else loose. It might just be one with the moss now. There we go. But there's two types of character actors. There's character actors that do such a great job at playing characters that you can spot them a mile away, like Johnny Depp. And there's character actors that are so good at playing these different characters that they disappear completely into the role. And you only see them as the character, and you can't pick out who they are. And I don't know if it's just because, like, I mean, Johnny Depp is Johnny Depp. How long do I want to make this? Probably not super long, maybe like this. Yeah. I think that's a pretty good length. I like using this braided cord because it hangs decently flat and is wide enough to fit on a nail or a small hook pretty nicely. And it's really sturdy. And I use this braided cord for plenty of other projects too, like some of the dream catchers that I mentioned earlier. And just other stuff. And my own slightly smaller Hobbit door I made for myself. So I'm going to hang it like this on the back. Try to center it as much as possible. Keep it pretty wide. But I want it to be the same on both sides, so it has that little bit of a flip on the top, because that's what's going to make it really nice to hang off of whatever kind of hook or just simple screw or nail you're going to hang it from. If you wanted, you could go really wide and make it doorknob accessible, but I probably wouldn't recommend that because you don't want this smacking into the back of a door repeatedly or anything, because you'll start to lose some of this because it is live dried moss. Maybe I should start putting the hangers on before I put all the squishy stuff on. I never thought of that before. That's sad. Oh, and that did not dry clear like I was hoping it would. Let me just try to pick that off real quick. I don't know why I thought the glue would dry clear. That's embarrassing. The key is picking it off without hurting anything else. pulling it free, but if I pull it free, that's fine. Oh, I got it. Dang, that's a big piece of glue. There we go. Nice and cute again. Not that it wasn't cute before. Flaws are not a problem. Accidents happen, and they do not make your design less. They're just unique. Okay, so we want it this way in the front, so I'm going to have it this way back here. And I'm going to keep it pretty wide, so like right there. And I'm going to glue down a couple inches because I want to make it nice and sturdy. And it helps that we don't let go, but that is exactly what I was afraid of. I keep burning myself. Now my thumb is going to be sore tomorrow. Just going to keep gently tapping it down until the glue cools a little bit, because that stung a little. Why do I insist on playing with hot glue when I am so clumsy? Okay, that side is mostly cooled. We can do the other side. Right about there. Keep it equally wide. Good amount of glue, so it has a nice firm hold. And tap, 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 tap. Try not to burn myself again. Tap, 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 tap. Tap, 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 tap. Sorry, I'm trying to work on like my repetition and stuff like that, like the actual things you are supposed to do for ASMR, because ASMR is more than just whispering. The repetitive sounds, the calming nature of it is a specific, there is a method to it. So just coming on here and saying everything in a quiet tone of voice does not qualify as ASMR. I am aware. I'm trying to get better about that. I tend to run off at the mouth sometimes. There are glue threads hanging all over me, but they should be pretty dry. Go ahead and flip it over and see if I got that even halfway decently centered. Not that there's much of a center to it because it is a round door. But there we have it. I think we can call this done. We've got some lovely flowers. We've got some nice little greenery growing up from the bottom here. Color variant, 3 different shades of moss, technically 4 because there's some natural color changes in there as well. I think it turned out absolutely lovely. Nice staple door hanger. Wouldn't go tugging on that too much until that glue really has time to harden overnight, but it will settle pretty nicely. So there is our Hobbit door. If you want to make one of your own, I would love to see pictures of it. Let me know. If there is anything else you want to see me tackle, or any topics you want me to spout off at the mouth about, let me know in the comments. I will do my best. And I will be doing a new spell jar on Monday. I have been waiting for the new moon to do a new spell jar, because you want to do anything that's bringing in energy, summoning, stuff like that during a new moon phase. So I had to wait for the time between the full moon and the new moon to pass. Otherwise, you got the opposite reaction and you're driving it away. And we are doing an abundance spell jar this time. So definitely want to get the cycle right on that. But anyway, thank you so much for coming by and hanging out with me tonight. I love you always. And have a wonderful evening.